Awesome. Morena everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Making the Most of Field Apps. This session marks the fifth and final webinar as part of the 2021 New Zealand Esri User Conference. And hopefully throughout the series, you've gained some newfound knowledge to take back to your organizations and gain some insight into the inner workings of some of your fellow Esri users. And I can guarantee you that you're in for quite the show today as well. As for your host for this session, my name is Julian Pilwa. I work in our technical solutions team here at Eagle, and I'm based in the Wellington office. And joining me today is my colleague, teammate, and good friend, Ed Cook. Kia ora, Ed.
Kia ora, Julian. Like Julian, I'm based in the technical solutions team in Wellington, and it's a pleasure to be on this webinar today.
Thank you very much. So what's on the agenda for today? So to kick us off, we're going to give a brief technology update, reinforcing and building upon some of the topics covered in last week's NZEUC plenary. However, the real stars of the show are going to be hearing from our awesome customer presentations. So in this session, you'll be hearing from the likes of Te Kahui o Taranaki Iwi, Toitu Te Whenua Land Information New Zealand, Arahikoi Aotearoa, the New Zealand Walking Access Commission, and last but certainly not least, a special guest presenter, which I believe is not so secret anymore after making a bit of noise on LinkedIn. So stay tuned for those. We'll then move on to a Q&A and end with a few closing words from Scott Campbell, Head of GIS Technology here at Eagle, to wrap up the NZEUC for 2021. Going back to the Q&A, please feel free to ask either Ed, myself, or our customer co-presenters questions throughout the webinar. Our presenters will be joining us for the Q&A at the end of the session. And please ask those questions using the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll endeavour to answer all of those at the end of the webinar. If we don't quite get to them all, we'll definitely follow up with you afterwards. It's also worth mentioning that this webinar will be recorded and made available later today on the Eagle YouTube channel. And you can also catch our recent webinars on local government, utilities and asset management, and imagery and LiDAR there too. So if you've missed any content along the way, you can catch us there. And with the housekeeping out of the way, let's move on to our first topic, which is the topic of today, which is making the most of field apps. And to kick us off, I'm going to hand over to Ed to start us off with a bit of an overview as to the field apps. So over to you, Ed.
Cheers, Jules. So before we get into the technology, we want to really recognise you, the users. Without the technology, we don't have really compelling stories that come out of it, but really it's super important to have engaged users. And around the world, people are using field apps for various different topics and various different workflows. And we're extraordinarily lucky to have some of the world leaders in some of these tools actually presenting today amongst our users. So all in all, it's people and technology which creates this capability that we're seeing across not just Aotearoa, but globally as well. But it is a topic and it is a conference around technology today. And before we delve into some of the specifics, some of the tools themselves, we want to ask the question, why field apps? Well, we commonly see three different use cases for using field apps. The first is being able to view your geospatial data anywhere, anytime. And so this is really giving your field workers awareness of where they are and what and who is around them, all powered by information coming from their geospatial cloud. But it's not just about looking at data, it's also about capturing and updating information. And those are those other two use cases that we see, whether it's going out and capturing new things that have never been captured in GIS before, such as examples along the lines of asset management, capturing a new asset that's been hiding away for a while and finally being added to our layer of existing features, or it's updating existing information. So to carry that asset management example further, being able to perform inspections and update the condition of that asset. So performing inspection workflows or even live tracking on worker locations is really that update piece. So whether you're viewing, capturing new, or updating existing, that's where all the field apps really come into their own and really help you to do this. So these are the reasons behind it. And so to do this is then the what. And I guess now that we've addressed the why, all these tools start to make a bit more sense. And the capabilities that they're enabling for organizations really are very broad and expansive rather than just filling out a form. It's things like operational awareness from all those forms that are being filled out, streaming into dashboards in real time. Or whether it's looking at field work management, being able to perform sophisticated navigation and work coordination, all powered by your GIS. But then once we get there, we've got to do something, and really we've got 3 different means of collecting information, whether that's through a form, using big buttons, or using a map. And we can either have very simple map-driven data collection workflows for people using their mobile devices, or we can get quite sophisticated and comprehensive. Really, it's a continuum of capabilities that really you can pick and choose and chain them together to create workflows that work for you and your organization. And so how these tools are configured until now has been really much a focused application for each activity. So really along this field mobility life cycle, starting with planning, where you're going to go, navigating, understanding where you are, capturing something, monitoring who's out there, and then coordinating. Traditionally, the approach has been using an individual application for each one of those tasks. However, you may have picked up by now that Field Maps is one of those tools which has been developed to really include all of those capabilities into one. And really it's transforming how people will be using the field apps going forward, given the fact that they won't have to open perhaps 5 different applications just to get a simple task done out in the field. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to Julian, who's going to give us a bit of a tour of some of the capabilities inside Field Maps in more detail. So over to you, Jules.
Cheers for that, Ed. So as you would have heard on day 1 of NZEUC, ArcGIS Field Maps was released early last year, and hopefully many of you have downloaded the app and started migrating your projects over. But for those who aren't familiar, I'd just like to reiterate again that Field Maps currently includes the markup and offline capabilities of Explorer, the high accuracy data capture and editing capabilities of Collector, and the real-time location tracking of Tracker. ArcGIS Field Maps is also paired with a web builder, allowing you to configure your mobile experience. And actually, since our plenary presentation 2 weeks ago, there's been yet another update to Field Maps. This mostly includes quality improvements, but most excitingly, the ability to create fields from scratch directly within the Field Maps builder, and also a new plain language interface to build those tricky arcade expressions so that you can conditionally show fields or groups of fields. For more on details on what's new, I recommend you check out the ArcGIS blogs website and also the Esri UC videos that were released recently. So we're not going to be focusing on what's new today, but we will be showing you some common workflows that we've been seeing. So currently Explorer, Collector, and Tracker's capabilities are part of Field Maps. However, you also hopefully would have learned that the work order management capabilities of Workforce are also due to be absorbed into the Field Maps Super App early in 2022, and I've managed to track down some sneak peeks for you of what this may look like. So as you can see, it looks very similar to Workforce's current footprint. However, one of the key benefits, which you can see, is being able to view your assignments, information about your assignments and work orders, and capture the relevant data all within a single interface without having to switch between multiple applications. And this will become even more powerful once the turn-by-turn navigation capabilities of ArcGIS Navigator are integrated later in 2022. Whilst Navigator can be used to navigate to assignments, it can also be pushed to the limits, as shown here by example, which is supported by National Map, where they're enabling high productivity motor vehicles with an in-cab solution to route along National Map's premium network dataset, taking into account permitted roads that these heavy vehicles can travel along with, say, height, weight, and turning restrictions. So it's got more capability than, say, the A to B routing of Google Maps. With that in mind, though, returning now to our 3 core apps again, Explorer, Collector, and Tracker, I would just like to remind you again that these applications will be retired in December of this year, meaning that there are no additional planned enhancements or upgrades scheduled, and support will be limited. So if you haven't done so already, I strongly encourage you to download the Field Maps app and start migrating your projects today. For many of you, this will be as easy as downloading the app, as the interfaces are near identical. But for those of you who have configured the, say, app linking between different apps or offline areas, I've included a link at the bottom of the slide here to find out some more info. So if you were to type in bit.ly/migrate to field maps, you'll be able to find some more resources there on the process on migrating your current projects. And as many of you know, and as Ed mentioned, alongside field maps, ArcGIS also supports a number of specialized data collection tools such as Quick Capture and Survey123. Survey123 being for form-centric workflows, where you require maybe more detail-oriented information, or perhaps you need to generate on-the-fly calculations. You might want sort of intuitive data elements like cool sliders and a variety of different types of sort of drop-down options, or you may need to pull data from external sources. So those are all capabilities that maybe aren't available in field maps and Quick Capture, which is why you may want to look at Survey123. And then with Quick Capture, as Ed said, that's for our big button rapid data collection app. And whilst these apps can be used in isolation, you can even link the apps together to truly play to their strengths. So what I'm going to do now is, rather than us demonstrate these applications to you today, we thought it'd be more useful for our user stories to show you how they're actually applying these apps and the technology. But before we do that, I'll pass back over to Ed to talk through some of the common and emerging workflows we're seeing, along with some efficiency enablers to get the most out of your field data capture. So Ed, back over to you there, mate.
Thanks, Jules. So generally when people use these applications, they're not using them by themselves. And this is how in the past people have linked all these applications together to create different workflows for different means, whether you're going out and collecting and monitoring data, whether you're starting from a task using a tool called Workforce and launching other applications, or whether you're getting a little bit more sophisticated, as you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, and preparing data for the field to then be used across other applications. And all of this can be a little bit tricky, but it's become a lot more easier now to chain these together into workflows. And what's enabling these are these things that we've termed efficiency enablers, which are almost little configurations that you can do with each of the applications to really make them work for you and the tasks that you're needing to do. So the first efficiency enabler that I'd like to showcase is enabling offline downloading of content. And really this is all about the fact that majority of field operations may be inside urban areas, but where these apps really come into their own is when we can go offline and capture data. And when we're navigating and trying to understand our environment, it's really neat to be able to have the same high resolution data synced offline on your phone, able to be used. As you can see with the animations playing out on the screen, being able to take a high resolution topographic map offline that you've authored inside ArcGIS Pro is possible using a couple of different techniques, whether that's offline map areas, creating from Pro vector tile packages or mobile map packages that then the user can download and use for data capture inside their projects. So really this is our first efficiency enabler that we think is really valuable, and don't just feel that you can be using the apps only when you're in cell phone or internet coverage. You can be using them anywhere, anytime. And as one of our presenters will go into, there are some top tips that you can do when setting this up to really make them sing. So our second efficiency enabler really focuses around the capturing of data and information. And we call these URL parameters, but ultimately what they're doing is pre-populating records with existing values. So being able to click on a map, on a feature that you've already got defined, and then from there, being able to launch a form with half of it already filled out with information that's already been captured previously. And so the benefits for your field workers are probably more positive use of the application, given that they're not having to enter in their name or perhaps the address that they're recording a certain survey at, because they're launching it from inside a map and creating a pre-populated form. So really this speeds up that field workflow for when you're needing to do specific form captures that may have half the information already existing, and you don't want a user to have to fill that out every time they visit a site. So top tip there. Our next efficiency enabler looks a little bit more at the monitoring piece. And what's really exciting with the field apps is traditionally they captured information that then went back inside our GIS. But now with webhooks, we have the ability for every time you go out and capture something out in the field, or you capture something of a specific importance, we can link up workflows that get triggered as soon as the user hits the submit button. And so, for example, being able to send an auto-generated email every time a user captures a high hazard experience that they've had out in the field, that means that management don't have to be eyes peeled on an attribute table or a dashboard to know it's happened. They can be alerted from inside their inbox using a webhook. And there are many different ways to deploy these in your organization, and really they depend on what your current business system is or what your requirements are. But ArcGIS has inbuilt webhooks that you can set up. Microsoft Power Automate is a very popular one that we see with Microsoft 365 users, but also Integromat, Zapier, and Azure Logic Apps are other tools that we're seeing people use, create these really sophisticated workflows, which under the hood are really sophisticated, but for the end user, it just means they're sending information without having to double handle it. And other members of the organization are being able to receive that information without necessarily having to log into their GIS. So really powerful capabilities there, why we've put it in as an efficiency enabler. Our next one goes a little bit further on that concept. And being able to be informed of things as they're happening is where we see dashboarding become more and more prevalent with every field data capture use case that you as users are deploying. It's great to have data captured, but it's even better being able to see it come in real time, particularly if you're dealing with quite high pressure situations. As you can see, an example in the background, the field apps that were used recently to assess the entirety of Westport twice during the recent flood events, and the ability to capture assessments for every property twice in the period of 2 to 3 days, and being able to watch it all in real time is something that I think is a really powerful capability. You know, users are out there filling out their individual forms, but dashboards really show how they fit into that bigger picture and perhaps where those gaps are. And so dashboarding as a coordination piece is a really powerful addition to a workflow that you may already have set up. So do consider setting up a dashboard with your next field capture application. But then the next efficiency enabler deals with the fact that it's great to see something on a dashboard, but what do I do about it? Do I send them a text message? Do I send them a phone call? Well, another addition that you may want to consider is the use of tools like Workforce, which allow you to act on what you're seeing with this incoming field data and then dispatch and create a spatial to-do list to send out to your workers. And really, this is about data-driven efficiency. If someone's reporting something out in the field and the person who can fix it happens to be close by, rather than them coming back into the office and then heading back out again because you're briefing them using a paper map, for example, that you've printed off, why not task them using the same tools that they're capturing data with, using Workforce, which will in future be incorporated into field maps, as Julian covered. So really that boosts that coordination and planning piece. But another efficiency enabler, which also contends with something quite popular out there, drones, is using GIS to really utilize your drone to its full potential. So we don't cover it in depth here today, but SiteScan is another mobile application that is really enabling data that usually was captured using a third-party system to be planned, captured, and processed all inside your GIS. And we do see quite a bit that people primarily use their drones for capturing photos and videos, but people sometimes forget that they've got a very powerful location sensor, given the fact that you probably want to know where it is so you can pilot it. And you can leverage that for data captured inside your GIS. So rather than just having a photograph sitting in your file explorer on your hard drive, why not bring that in and start stitching together perhaps a base map, a more up-to-date base map of your operational area to inform your operational staff on the ground, and really that 2D, 3D capability, as well as capturing point data using the drone's position rather than your own. Capabilities that are emerging here. So if you're in an organization right now with a drone and all you're doing at the moment is using it to capture individual stills or short video clips, do consider the fact that as a planning and navigation piece for your field crews, you could be really leveraging that investment even further. So do check out our webinars and resources on SiteScan, very exciting capability. But with that, that's sort of our top efficiency enablers that we're seeing that we'd recommend every user pick up. But now I'm going to hand back over to Jules now, because I think it's time to go and visit some of our users out in the field. So Jules, you're heading out there, mate. How's it going?
I am. It's going well. I'll leave the going into the field for our customers today, but thought I'd join them and feel sort of in place by wearing the gear that they're going to be wearing out there too.
Good stuff.
Cheers for that, Ed. Moving on now from our technology update, which we thought we'd keep brief for today, but we'll definitely provide some resources on what we've shown today on how you can dig a little deeper into what we've been talking about. But now we'd like to shed some light on some of the awesome customer stories that we have using the Esri Field apps across New Zealand and how they're using the apps to meet their business needs. As for our first presentation for the day, we're going to kick off with Te Kahui o Taranaki iwi and hear about how they're enabling their iwi members to restore the well-being of their taiao. So now I'd like to pass over to Taipuni Ruakere, Toa Taiao, Nature and GIS Champion at Te Kahui o Taranaki iwi.
Ko tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Taranaki, ko Hikurangi, ko maunga haumi oku nei maunga. Ko Taranaki, ko te atiawa, ko Ngāti Parau, ko taitanga mahaki oku nei iwi. Ko Tarawainuku te marae, ko puni o pā tōku papakainga. He kaima ia hau, o te tima taiao ki te Kahui o Taranaki, ko Taipuni Ruakere a tōku nei ingoa. Nō reira, e me iana kia koutou. Kia ora everybody, my name is Taipuni and I'm a member of our taiao team at Te Kahui o Taranaki. This is our team in the middle. This is my 11-year-old son Hiona, who loves to come out and fly the drone with us. And then this is me here on the left. Okay, you might be thinking, well, where is Te Kahui o Taranaki? Or where is Taranaki iwi? Our iwi are on the west coast, Te Tai Hauru, of Tika Maui, which is the North Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Our iwi begins at Rawa o Turi in the south and travels right through to Onuku Taipari in the north. We have a number of hapu in our iwi, probably around 20, I think, and then we have 7 marae. So what do we do? What do we do for our mahi? We are literally boots on the ground, feet in the water, walking our rivers, monitoring and inspecting our coastline. Maintenance is also a huge part of our role. Over the last year, we've been working in collaboration with one of our hapu to remove 80 dead and decaying trees from one of our ancient pā sites. In the other photo, I'm about to walk and inspect one of our local streams. We also install and manage traps on our pā sites and streams, and we undertake regular removal of gorse and other invasive weeds from our rivers. On the right, we have one of what my oldest son is helping to remove gorse during the recent lockdown. During our work, we often discover many issues, from old rubbish tips, effluent being discharged into our streams, and developments happening near some of our cultural sites. Investigating and engaging with landowners, councils and hapu is also a vital part of our role. One of our priorities as an iwi is to engage with our community. Many groups have come alongside us, including hapu members, rangata i rōpū youth, schools, and occasionally our tari. Our office staff will come and spend a day helping us, which they really enjoy. Now that you've had an insight into our operations, these next slides will focus on another key function in our team, which is GIS and data capture. Over the year, we have been exploring and trying various apps to work out which tool best meets our needs. What we have noticed is these tools are helping to improve our workflow, from planning, coordinating where we need to be, and recording important data such as water monitoring general observations and site inspections. Esri tools also allow us to evaluate, analyse and present our findings to our hapu and iwi members and councils, which is powerful. The environment in which we live and work in is enormous. Our workspace includes 3 mountains, maunga, over 100 streams and tributaries, and over 80 kilometres of rugged coastline. Esri field apps are helping to support our capacity to cover our entire iwi ro'e.
Kia ora koutou, welcome to part 2 of my presentation. What I'm going to do now is demo some of the apps that we're using in our Taiao team at Te Kawi o Taranaki. This page here is our system Te Manuao, and this is our group page, Taiao.gis. So here is how's all of our map layers and web maps and so forth, all of our data. First of all, I'm going to take you to Survey 123. Survey 123 is our go-to for our monitoring, especially in our waterways. We also have some inspection surveys in here. So we've got a Pawa survey here. Way order is based on a SMAC test at Niwa, as is Awa order, which is the habitat assessment survey. Mauri order is still under development as we continue our wānanga in regards to the cultural indicators in our Taiao ro'e. Haumaru 1 and Haumaru 2 are health and safety surveys which we complete before we undertake any of our operational mahi in the field. This is an example of what it looks like on your phone. So this is the Waiora survey. At the top we offer our tikanga first, which is generally a karakia, technology, our taha wairua, the spiritual realm. We always acknowledge the hapu rohe that we're working in, and if we know any of the cultural sites that are present. And the rest of the survey is your standard data that you want to have, that you want to record. So weather, and then all of the water testing data as well. So that's what it looks like on your phone, which I will demonstrate as well in part 3 of my presentation. Can I now introduce you to Workforce? Workforce is an amazing tool. This is really our virtual to-do list. So you need to go in and create your projects. We have 5 here: Awa, Maunga, Moana, site inspections, and Whenua. I'm going to take you to our Awa project, kaupapa, and here I've got a list of assignments that I've assigned to myself to do. So when you create your assignment, you go to add assignment, and you can select the type of assignment we want to complete. You can add the location address, assign it to one of the team, give it a priority, a due date, and an ID and description if you want to, and then press save. Let's go back to my list of assignments. On the right hand side, all of your assignments are located on a map. So let's go to the survey of this assignment here, and let's look at some of the details of the mahi. So the location is in Tataramaka. The priority is medium, and it's due on the 26th of September, and it's been assigned to me, and the ID is here as well, so you can edit those details again if you wanted to, and it'll update that in the system. Down the bottom here we've got a list of our kaimahi, our workers, which is very handy as well. Okay, the next app that's really powerful, I think, too, is dashboards. So you can build dashboards on your system, and this is a dashboard which visualizes the sites that I'm monitoring. I've got 10 rivers and 30 sites. The river mouth, and then I've got sites on the main road, and then closer to the maunga. So it's quite a lot of sites to be monitoring. So we can see I've got 7 assigned projects to finish, or tasks. I've completed 17, and once again we've got a map of those assignments. This is a really cool tool. When you click on the the assignment, it flashes in the map in purple, which I think's really, real cool, a cool tool. You can add other data to your dashboard, survey data, graphs, might be water temperatures if you like, and so forth. The final tool that I wanted to show you was Quick Capture. I love this tool. It's because it's easy to use. So you come into your system online and you build your project here, and then you can open it on your phone. So let's take you to one of the surveys that I did while walking one of the streams. And on the left hand side we have a legend, and these are the observations that I created on the system to use on my phone. And I basically walked the river, and if I saw algae, if I saw pipes, rubbish, then I'd take a photograph, and then it comes up in your map. So if I click on one of these dots, for instance, let's have a look, and it will show erosion on the river. So it's pretty cool. If you wanted to view the data in more detail, you can open up the table, and we made 138 observations. So this is a very powerful tool. So once again, you can gather your data, go back to your office and your team hui, and you can view all the observations that you're making in these spaces. And you can take this information and have a kōrero with landowners or developers, whoever you need to talk to, and work out a plan to make changes if you need to make changes. So Quick Capture, great tool, highly recommend it. So thank you, whānau. Just a short demonstration of how we're using these field apps. Please stick around for part 3, and I'll take you through a demo on my phone. Kia ora. Kia ora, I've just come down to one of our river mouths to show you how we use Survey 123. A little bit windy out here, but I'm just going to show you where we are. This is our Pukawa, or reef, and then this is the river mouth. And most of our streams would flow down from our mountains in Maunga. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Survey 123 on my phone. Just going to move into the shelter, away from the wind. So I'm going to go to operations, field operations, choose Survey 123. We've got a few surveys here for the team, mostly for the river. Some of them, a couple for health and safety, Haumare 1 and 2, and for site inspections. I'm going to go to Way Order. Way Order is based on the SHMAC survey from Niwa, and we've adapted it to suit our needs. So to open it, we go to Collect. The first part of our survey, which is the most important for our team, is to offer our tikanga. Acknowledge tikanga, meaning in some cases we might offer a karanga, like the marae as well. Karakia, spiritual words of acknowledgement to the spiritual realm, mi'i, greeting, and the waiata traditional song, if you like. Next, we also acknowledge our hapu that we're in, the rohe that we're working in, and then identify or select any cultural sites that are nearby in the area. The next part of the survey is a standard data, date, site ID, river name, location on the map, who's doing the monitoring, and then time started and so forth. We always take photos of the river so we can check it over time, and then we look at the weather conditions. We make assessment notes to see if there's any changes from the last visit, and then we move into the water monitoring test. Before that, we look at a site health check of the river, and then we look at temperature, conductivity, water clarity, and then the pH. When we're finished, we select the tick at the very bottom right, and then I usually save it in Outbox and send it when I get back to the internet. Here you go, whānau, that's it. Survey 123, done. Kia ora, just been driving along the road and noticed some rubbish or a plastic bottle that someone's thrown out onto the grass verge, and I thought this is a great opportunity to demonstrate how we're using Quick Capture. So I'm going to go back to field operations on my phone, select Quick Capture, and this is Toroki Uta, and I've created this online and added some categories which are general observations that we might make as we drive around Aotearoa. So I'll select rubbish in yellow, and now I'm going to zoom in to the plastic bottle and then take a photo and then select done.
Rubbish.
And there you go, now it's mapped onto our system, so really easy to use. Kia ora. Okay, this final demo is for field maps. So let me go to my phone, open up field maps. So I'm going to go to PAR site inspections. So one of our kaupapa that we'll be undertaking shortly is to map some of the archaeological features on some of our PAR sites because they're really unique and we want to protect them, and also locate where they are and identify features such as rua storage pits, terraces, whare sites, cooking areas and so forth. So let's choose one of the PAR, and I just wanted to demo how to collect information or add information to the site. So to do that, so on ArcGIS Online I've set up a feature layer, and for points, for paths and areas. So let's add a point or place, and I'm going to move pick feature. And so if I wanted to map maybe a PAR entrance, a pathway, arahikoi, might be a maioro, ditch, or a rua storage pit, then you can choose it here. So let's pretend it's a storage pit I'm identifying on the PAR, and then you can choose, you can take a photo too, and you can update point, and then press the tick button, and then it submits the data to your map online. So yeah, that's pretty much how you do it. Really great tool again for doing different types of kaupapa in the field. Kia ora. To close this presentation, this is what it's all about for our team, is restoring the taiao, returning our native species back to the awa like the whio. Thank you for following me on my journey, and I'd like to thank Eagle Technology for inviting me to present. Rere tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou.
Kia ora Taipuni, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing with us a bit of a view into your world, and it's awesome to see the work that you're doing to create a healthier taiao for future generations, which, as you said, ko te oranga o te whenua, ko te oranga o te tangata. A healthy taiao will lead to healthy people. Awesome. So moving on to our second user story for today. Next up, we're hearing from Toitū Te Whenua, Land Information New Zealand, and how they're using the Esri Field apps to help manage and monitor New Zealand's biodiversity and biosecurity at a national scale. And to hear about this, I'm going to pass over to Ravi Pichika, GIS analyst at Toitū Te Whenua. So without further ado, over to you, Ravi.
Hi everyone, welcome to 2021 NZ Esri User Conference. My name is Ravi Pichika and I'm from Toitū Te Whenua, Land Information New Zealand. Let me introduce you to today's topic. Our topic for today is field operations, and I'll be introducing you to some of the Esri apps, why we use them, and what are some of the benefits. Here at LINZ, we use different Esri tools to coordinate projects, contracts, field workers, so that we standardize the process and receive accurate data back into the office. Without a unified workflow, you usually end up with inaccurate data, manual processes, and I guess a lot of paperwork. When I say manual process, we often see people out in the field collect data using pen and paper method. Then they go back into the office and do manual entries into the spreadsheets. We encourage everyone whom we work with, like our partners, various community groups, councils, to use field apps, as it makes everyone's life easier, and they're also fun and stress-free to use. What are some of the uses, I guess? Why do we use them? They bring in modern workflows by eliminating and reducing reliance on paper processes. boost data accuracy by obtaining accurate, reliable, and accessible data, save time and money by optimizing efficiency, also gain perspective by allocating resources to deliver maximum impact, and monitor status in real time by using virtually rich dashboards, and they're used to inform decisions. So this is where WebViewer's dashboards come into play. What are some of the benefits? You got these pre-configured field maps and forms on your mobile devices that your field workers can use in the outside in the field. Brings efficiency into the field. Find key assets and report their locations. They also work with most modern devices such as Androids, Apple tablets. It's also easy to collab with other government agencies, as a majority of them use ArcGIS software. Can also be easily incorporated to WebViewers for analysis and decision making. So these are some of the apps. ArcGIS Field Maps was launched in October 2020, and it replaces the functionality of some of the previous apps like Collector, Explorer, and Tracker. So now it's all in one. It's called ArcGIS Field Maps. Cool. So now let me just give you some examples of what some of the quick capture apps look like. That's the icon. You click on the icon, and these are the list of all the apps that are available. Under settings, you can change the settings on your phone. So app is the project control app. Basically, you're capturing records like lines, polygons, and points. But this one's only capturing points and tracks. So that's the tracking feature. And then under new traps, you can take pictures of the traps that you're put out of the field. In this case, it's just a test, so just taking a random picture. And then you can also put in the type of bait used. Can be handy. And then these are some of the other features that they wanted to capture when they're out of the field. So anything with the camera attached on the button, you can take pictures for them. Yeah, you can also put in extra description. For example, in this case, it's a scratching button, so just put test cat scratching, and then go done. And under species caught, these are the list of species that they're expecting out of the field. So once they fall into a trap, you can put in details like whether the trap's cleared and what's the new bait, stuff like that. So these apps work offline as well. So when you're out in the field, you capture the data, everything's going to be captured on your device. And when you're back in the office in a Wi-Fi zone, you can send the data through by clicking on the top button, and then whatever device that's being captured on your phone, it will be sent to the viewer, the web viewer that you've set up. So that's basically as easy as that. And you're going to get a notification saying all records sent shortly. There you go. Moving on, they also used Quick Capture app to set up a read control project for Meraki. Similar concept. Open the app up, open the Meraki read control. So these are the list of chemicals that they're using out in the field. Select the chemical, select a control method. So these are the species that they're targeting. And then you have single and multi buttons. Basically, if you're treating a single plant, you click single. If you're treating multiple trees, you click multi. And when you click multi, it's going to a question is going to pop up saying how many trees have you treated. Give it a random number, approximate, and then you also got a point of features at the bottom, point of interest. So that's basically if you want to put in any extra nodes, additional nodes, like revisit locations, or if you're not sure what this particular plant is. So you can change the control method and chemical as well. In this case, we're just going no chemicals in mechanical control, and then we're starting in a new set of buttons. Yeah. So the point of interest. So this is where you can capture more information. You can take pictures, and then you can also put in extra notes. And you can also make offline map packages available as well. So when they're out in the field, they'll know exactly where they are. Yeah, similarly, once the data has been captured, you can send it back into the office. So the third one, it's the seed collection app. So the Haukanohi Seed Collection Project is part of the Lens Strategic Projects for Jobs for Nature. The team wanted an app that would keep track of where they are, details of the seed collections, and the ability to add seed baits once they're dried. So it's a similar looking project. So here's some photos of the team out in the field using Quick Capture app. So seed collection, and then they are bagging them and recording a unique bag number in the app. So that's what some of the data looks like. So once they go back into the office, the seed collectors can add weights to the collection points once their seeds have been dried and weighed. So the next one is the Lens TMA Feral Cat Control Field app. So Lens supports a number of TMA projects. For this one, they wanted a simple app to collect and store data for feral cat control. They use this cute conservation dog named Julius, who's trained to sniff out feral cats. He's got a GPS tracker attached to him, and they've extracted the GPS file from the tracker and uploaded it in this interface along with other data that's been captured by Field Quick Capture app. So the red line indicates the dog track, and the blue line indicates the dog handler who's operating the Quick Capture app. We've also got TMA Lens project. So this is how some of the data looks like. For this one, they also use Quick Capture app, whereas they've also got aerial control method, and ground control method. So that's how some of the data looks like in a web viewer. That's enough of Quick Capture. Let's move on to another app called Survey123. So Survey123 is a field app that allows you to fill out a predetermined form remotely on your phone and automatically upload it to the cloud. So people download the form on their phone, and then they can use it offline when they're out in the field. The way how it works, it's basically you fill out basic information about the project, select the location on the map, and answer general audit and control specific questions. There's an extensive list of sections that need to be filled out. And let's play this video. So this is what the dashboard looks like. So you've got a list of outstanding actions and the ones that are complete. So when you click on them, it takes you to the area, and then you can access the audit form. And under actions, I guess you can add as many as required, and you can mark them either complete or not complete. And once you're connected to the internet, you can send in the survey, and it'll be in Wickers straight away. So Wickers is a wildlife conifer information system dashboard. Moving on, UAV photogrammetry. Enjoy this video. I think this is just a stitch of 3 different areas. I've just edited the video. So that's how some of the raw footage looks like. So we use a range of photogrammetric applications such as Drone2Map, Pix4D, ArcGIS, AutoMapping Workplace to build 3D point clouds, de-zooms, and auto images. So that's some of the drone imagery stitched together, and that's a point cloud of the each and every individual point of the each and every individual image of the drone. And we also use it for non-survey purpose. So as well as conducting surveys, to create products for using GIS, we also use some of this imagery for our comms team. So that's just a video showing Avon River, I believe, in Christchurch. And that's Pink Terrace, somewhere in Governor's Bay. So we've got a qualified pilot in our team. So yeah, these are some of the images. So that's just a stitched image of an area that we were targeting. And all these images are captured from DJI Mavic Air Pro. Some of the braided rivers, the islands. Pretty cool quality for a raw image. These are unedited, by the way. So yeah, that's basically it. You can do a lot of different cool things. You can make custom built apps based on what they want to capture out in the field. And another quick tip, if you want to learn more on how to do these, YouTube's got everything. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Ravi. Pretty awesome to see how you're, I suppose, enabling hundreds of field workers across New Zealand with the tools that they need to help inform data-driven decisions out in the field. And it also looks like you're looking for new ways to capture data more efficiently too. So it looks like you're going to be being kept pretty busy there, mate. Awesome. So as you've seen, the Esri Field apps can be configured to meet a variety of use cases, whether you're monitoring the health of your taio, eradicating pests, or keeping your workers and their dogs safe in the field. And for many of you, the off-the-shelf products meet your needs. But you also have the option to leverage these capabilities within your own custom application. And so to hear a bit about this, I'm now going to pass back over to Ed. Over to you, Ed.
G'day, Jules. So before we go out into the field once more, I just wanted to introduce another product that exists in the Esri lineup, which really allows you to take all those capabilities that are in those off-the-shelf apps like Survey123, Quick Capture, and Field Maps, and actually configure your own custom applications that really align directly to exactly what you're wanting when you open up your mobile device. And so App Studio allows you to do this. App Studio has two components to it. It has a development workbench and then also a preview player that allows you to create applications, deploy them out, and then have a beta testing environment that allows users to use their phone to look at the most recent application you've created and then preview it and then provide feedback once they've had a good test of it. From here, you can then deploy it into the app stores. So you can be deploying into Apple and Android users' own app stores and really have that application that you've always wanted, perhaps with exactly the right color too, for what you're always wanting, and pull it out to your users. So you start with a template and then go from there. And a really exciting use case, which came out recently, is the topic of our next talk, coming from Arahikoi Aotearoa, New Zealand Walking Access Commission, where they've been able to create their own App Studio application to really put public access maps in your pocket. And so presenting from Arahikoi Aotearoa, we have Danica and Sarah, who have been really the driving force behind this application coming out. So with that, I'd like to hand over to the team at NZWAC. Over to you guys.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining to listen to this presentation on Pocket Maps. My name is Sarah Cruikshank, and I am the GIS and IT Manager for the Walking Access Commission. I'll also be joined by Danica Toyers, our GIS Analyst, later in the presentation to take you through a more in-depth view of Pocket Maps. But let's start with who we are. We are a small Crown agency based in Wellington. We have regional field advisors around the country as well. We deal with public access across different land tenures, and unlike the name suggests, we deal in more than just walking. But what do we do? Well, the Commission maintains and negotiates public access, facilitates new public access, promotes outdoor recreation, and of course, we map public access. So let's take a look at our GIS path. To help the public of New Zealand, and even those visiting New Zealand from overseas, when we're able to, the Commission uses Spatial to show where the access is possible. In 2019, we engaged Eagle Technology to help us upgrade our GIS system from the ground up. This was the start of our new path. The aim of this was to make the experience for users better, but also to give the GIS team new opportunities and have a future-looking approach. Now we utilise local maps and offer a collection of maps to the public, currently called Our Maps. Our Maps helps users understand where the public access areas are in New Zealand. On top of this, we also display hunting and fishing points, docked huts and campsites, conservation land, LINZ cadastral layers, tracks and trails, and much more. These all help to connect the information together and give the maps more value for the user. Currently, we have 5 maps available to the public, with our outdoor access map being the most popular. This has everything in it. We also offer a help guide, and really importantly, we ask for feedback. Feedback helps us make sure that we're still on the right path. But that's cool. Now we have a reliable collection of maps. But what's next? Well, this year, our GIS team refocused to have this aim: create meaningful maps and apps to support communities. To help us with this, we engaged Eagle again and joined the Advantage program. Let's start bringing that app to life that we've been dreaming about for years. And so, Pocket Maps was born. But to create Pocket Maps, we also needed to understand why we needed Pocket Maps. It's nice to have shiny things, but there needs to be a reason. Public access is not just in urban areas. It's also in the backcountry and usually away from cell phone reception. So when using public access areas to get somewhere, let's say that great trout fishing location, you had to plan it out beforehand, print off the map, and hope you're in the right place. An offline capable map in an app was the most requested feature from the public over the last 5 years. And It was something that we could see value in, and it supports communities. Here you can see a few things that we got through from our feedback. Are you going to develop an app for this? Well, now you know a little bit about us and what led us here. I'm going to pass you over to Danica, who's going to take you through Pocket Maps.
What is Pocket Maps? Pocket Maps is a mobile app containing public access areas across Aotearoa. The maps are split into regions and can be downloaded for offline use. The app has a GPS positioning so you can see where you are in relation to the area. You can also draw and measure routes on the map to measure distance or areas. The app is not designed to replace a GPS unit and should be used in conjunction with one if going outdoors. Pocket Maps lets people search their exact location and understand what type of land access they are currently looking on or looking to hunt, fish, walk, or mountain bike through. Now, I am going to give you a quick tour of the app and its features. When you first open the app, it takes you to the gallery of maps that are divided into regions. You can choose what region you're interested in to load the map. I'm going to open the Auckland region. The layers load faster as you zoom in. In the map, there are a few widgets available for the user. The contents show the layer and the legend. By default, all the layers are turned on. The users can turn off the layer they don't want to see. The Draw and Measure tool allows the user to draw or measure tools on the map. You can also measure an area and choose your preferred unit. The drawings are discarded as you close the widget. There are 3 base maps available to choose from. This feature is not available for the offline version of the map due to the way the maps are packaged. The 3 base maps available are the Vector Base Map, Lens Topo 50, and NZ Imagery. You can download the map for offline use. The download time varies depending on the user's phone and internet connection. The downloaded maps can be seen on the Offline tab of the app. You can download more than one map for offline use. We used the Vector Base Map as the default online base map because of its size. It is more compact and you can zoom in further, allowing the users to see the details better. The offline version of the app doesn't have the search function as well. On the main menu of the app, there are a few other contents. You can change the font size to make the text bigger. The users can get in touch with us using the feedback section if they have any questions or comments about the app. The About section has more information about the app, including our disclaimers. We used Esri's ArcGIS App Studio to create Pocket Maps. Within App Studio, we used the Map Viewer template as the foundation of the app. We made some minor changes to the template to make it more suitable for our needs. The maps feeding the app were created in our AWS environment. Each map corresponds to one region. The maps are published to our ArcGIS Online and are put in one group. App Studio fetches this information using the group ID and displays the maps. The app is packaged and uploaded to Google Play Console and App Store Connect to make the app available for Android and iOS devices. Creating Pocket Maps came with some challenges. The default base map gallery had 16 base maps to choose from, including base maps with a different projection system. We wanted to adjust the number of base map options available to avoid overwhelming the users with a lot of options and to remove the base map with a different projection system. Initially, we thought the base map selections are being fed by a base map group in ArcGIS Online. However, the changes we made did not reflect on the app. After looking at the QML file, it appeared the base maps were being fetched somewhere else. We worked with Eagle to create a script that forces the app to look at a specific group of base maps which is set on ArcGIS Online. Through this, we can narrow the base maps down to the 3 base maps you can see on the app now. We also came across a few bugs while working on the app, which affected a few functions. We implemented a workaround to these issues. However, the recent App Studio update have fixed those bugs. The bugs we found were the following. Map sorting. The sorting field was not recognizing our input. We found out the sorting was hard-coded to a script instead of reading the input that we've put on the field. Offline base map. The vector base map appeared different when downloaded for offline use. It only seemed to affect vector base map as well. This affected our decision. Initially, we were going to publish the app with Topo 50 base map, which was a lot heavier and the maps were packaged differently. Offline legend and layer list. The list appeared to be in the reverse order and the text had underscores between them instead of space. This didn't affect the functionality of the layers itself. Pocket Maps is still in its early days, and we are constantly learning and listening to feedbacks to improve our app. Going forward, we are looking at adding our tracks and trails dataset to Pocket Maps. We have also received feedbacks from our users regarding the transparency of the layers. We will be adjusting the transparency of the layers to make the base map more visible. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah and Danica. Just amazing to see the fact that as GIS people, we're starting to get into the app development realm. We'd encourage you all, just like I have, to install Pocket Maps today. It's available on the App Store and Google Play, and I think you'll truly see what others can't in terms of land access across Aotearoa. So awesome to see the technology used and applied in a slightly different way to bring GIS to everyone nationwide. So that wraps up another user story from Arahikoi Aotearoa. I'm now going to pass over to Julian, who I think has a little surprise for us all. Julian.
Yeah, I think I've got more than one surprise for everyone. Cheers for that, Ed. It's getting pretty sunny in here, as you can tell. And also thank you to Sarah and Danica as well for your user story. Awesome. So moving on to our fourth and final customer presentation, we have a special guest presenter. And I thought I'd make a little puzzle for you all to give you a clue if you don't know who it is already. If you have any ideas, feel free to drop them in drop your guesses in the chat, and we'll put your puzzle skills to the test. I'll leave it there for a couple seconds, give you a couple seconds to think. And I suppose without further ado, let's pass on to our mystery presenter, the one and only Scott Samble. And so Scott, you may know him as the ArcGIS Online guy with the dog, or a GIS conservationist extraordinaire. But let's see what Scott's getting up to in the field now.
Kia ora there. Julian asked us to do a short video for his field operations webinar, and I said, "Oh, sorry, Julian, couldn't possibly do that. We don't have time to do that. We'll be out doing field operations in the field. We can't do a proper job." So I thought, well, when has that stopped us in the past? And let's put something together anyway. So here's Scott's top tips for field maps out in the field.
This is Waikawa Island, and that noise behind us
is a very, very large percentage of the population of New Zealand shore plovers. I mean, sure, there's only 3 of them, but no, what's that, 1% of the population or something, just sitting there behind us making noise? That's why it's quite important that we make sure there's no rats out here, because apparently these guys are the most favourite food in the world of rats. They're very, very susceptible to them. But the great thing about it is that as soon as you land on this island, the first thing you do is go and look for these fellas. And if you see a couple, you can pretty much guaranteed that the island's rat-free. Because if there was rat here, they'll be dead. We'll keep looking anyway. So primarily, and most importantly, you've got to look after your field workers, don't you? Yes, field workers are the most important people, because without the data, you got nothing. If the field workers aren't happy to use the app that you're making, then you'll end up with no data, or even worse, crap data, which just ruins everybody's day. So you've also got the guys that, obviously the guys that are doing operations and the analysts, those type of guys. But they're only secondary, because without the field workers, they're not going to have a job. So look after those guys first. The most important thing is that whatever you're building has to be easy to use, and they have to want to use it. So don't make them do things like put in the name of the island every time that they have to put a data point in or something like that. Anything you can do to make the field workers' jobs easier, do it. One of the questions I get all the time, which is, how accurate is Field Maps? Which is just that common misconception that it's all about the app and not about the device itself. So let's stop referring to the devices we're running Field Maps on as our phones, because it's letting us down. If we say, oh, well, this app is crap, it won't run. It's, oh, yeah, but you're trying to run it on a Nokia 3610 or something like that. You wouldn't pack your bag and just throw in an ordinary old pair of runners you got lying in the cupboard. No, you got proper work boots to do proper work jobs. And like, you wouldn't just take your family pet to go out and check an island to see if it was rodent free. You take a conservation dog. And by the same token, you're going to have a proper field device that you've bought just to do this, not just your common old phone that you use to make phone calls with. And you're going to get something that's going to be fit for purpose. It's going to have the location accuracy, it's going to have the processor, it's going to have everything that you need to do the job. All right, let's talk about working offline. In New Zealand, in the field, we very rarely actually come into reception, but when we do, we want to sync. And so we get the phone out. You'll often see us like this, trying to get a couple of bars of reception so we can sync, so we can pull other people's data, push your own data, see where everyone else is at. So if you know where your field workers are working, then you can create map areas for them, which is a lot easier because you make the areas actually in AGOL and then they download them. It's a hell of a lot easier for them. If they have to make their own offline areas, it has to create itself like on their device, and it just seems to take forever. And it might not actually work if they're not in good enough reception. Anyway, regardless if you're getting them to make their own offline areas or you're creating the map areas, we usually use a aerial imagery based map, and we usually make the resolution building or buildings if it's a little bit of a larger area, and we like to aim to keep that the size of the area around about 150 meg. Any smaller than that, and it's not even worth doing. Any bigger than that, and sometimes they have trouble downloading it if they've got pretty poor reception, because you know what they're going to do. They're going to forget to download the offline area before they get in the field, and they're going to try to be downloading it with 2 bars of 2G or something. So just keep that in mind. So one of the biggest disadvantages we found in making map areas for your field workers is that once they're made, the field workers can't unmake them. So if they make their own offline areas, they can delete them, and then suddenly they're online, they've got reception, and they can use the web map as an online web map. You can't get rid of your map areas. So if you want them to have the ability to be able to work online, you're going to have to create a whole new web map for them. So I can save as the offline one and have an online and an offline version, of course, means you have to maintain 2 web maps. So if anyone from Esri is watching this, can I pretty please have a button so I can suddenly flick to online, even if I already have pre-existing offline and map areas on my web map? Thank you. So let's talk about Tracker. Unless you've been living in a cave for the last year, you'll know now that Tracker is integrated into Field Maps. which is awesome. You get that beautiful blue line actually on a real map that you make inside Field Maps, and everybody is happy. The way to be extra happy about this is next time you talk to your account manager and they say to you, so would you like a creator license or a field worker license with that? You say, I would like a field worker license, because you get a free tracker license with that. If you're a creator, you still got to use the tracker add-on. The tracker isn't just about that very beautiful blue line that you see on your field device, because tracker does amazing things in the background if you want to, because it spits out all these track points and you can spatially intersect those with all of your other features and make them do wicked things, or you can just use it to make pretty pictures like this one. Well, we've searched all over this island, haven't we? Yes. And we haven't found any sign of rats. Found some extra shore plovers though, which is very cool. So, you know, they got added into a database. So, you know, we're finding more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff. Must mean we're doing the right thing. It's working. So until next time, stay safe, stay spatial. So primarily and most importantly, you got to look after your field workers. That's the most important thing, isn't it? No? Well, I think it is. I might be slightly biased though. But if you don't look after your field workers, don't give them something that they can use, you'll get no data. Or even worse, you'll get shit data, which, I can't say that.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. Entertaining as always. And thank you, Millie, as well. It's great to see you again. Awesome. So that concludes our customer stories for today. And I'd just like to express a massive thank you to all of our presenters, without whom we wouldn't have been able to put on quite the show for you today. And now I'd like to invite our presenters to join Ed and I by turning their cameras on to answer some of your questions. So we've got a few questions that have come through, but please continue to fire these through. And I'd also like to encourage you to stick around for the next 10 minutes or so, just so that you can hear some closing words from Scott Campbell as well to wrap up NZEUC for 2021. I can see my presenters. Hello, everyone. There you are.
Got up.
Hi.
Ravi and Taipuni, can we hear you at the moment?
Hey guys.
Yeah, Ravi, cool. Taipuni, can we hear you? Or not quite? Okay, we'll start off with a question for Ravi, perhaps then. So thanks for joining us, Ravi. Got a question here. For your trap inspections where you're using quick capture, how do you collate the information against a single trap when the points are all spread out? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, so when we create the apps, when we create the quick capture app for the predator traps, you can have a pop-up question up, on the app itself, so they can put in details, you know, about whatever they want to capture out in the field, and you can also take pictures, so it kind of stacks up in the metadata. And once you go in the viewer, that's when you can access all these details.
Awesome. Thank you very much for explaining that for us. Let's see, we'll pass one over to NZWAC. Danica and Sarah, I'll let you fight out who'd like to answer it. One question here, who do you see being the key stakeholders to benefit from Pocket Maps?
Oh.
Can't hear you at the moment there, Sarah.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Danica.
Yeah,
And I can hear you now, Sarah, too.
Oh, cool. So I think initially when we sort of looked at the app, it was targeted towards those hunter and fisherman type people going out in the field and actually using that public access, especially along waterways, to get their sort of way along. But I think long term it'll be useful for quite a number of people, and I particularly see it possibly being quite important for engaging with Māori and getting them out and being able to access their land that potentially they may not be or not know how to get there at the moment, and being able to walk along those rivers for conservation is quite important.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. I've definitely found, like, when using, say, Google Maps for walking a trail or whatnot, it gets you so far, but then having your enriched data sort of on top of that to get you that next step is yeah, incredibly valuable. Thank you. I've got one other question here for you both while we have you. How has the feedback been so far, and have you got any insights into what may be in Pocket Maps' future?
We've been receiving pretty good feedback so far. So we launched Pocket Maps formally a couple of weeks ago, and since then we've had a steady increase in downloads, and most of them have been positive, just being glad that this app is finally out, essentially. And then there were a few questions just about how to use the app and the functionalities of it, as well as the data. So we've got a few suggestions from the public in terms of what data they would like to see in the app in the future.
Yeah, also would users, I don't know if you've considered users being able to bring in their own data as well. Is that something that you've had a request for, or?
Not at the moment, but it is something that is on the cards, and it's something that we have in our minds. And I guess it's a matter of whether we have the capability to do that going forward and the resource as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for addressing that, Danica. Scott, we've got also, I should also say, we've got some awesome feedback for all of you, all saying that you've done awesome work on your presentations. Scott, we've got a question here that I knew would come up. Can we please get a transcript version of the points that ran through very quickly on our screens?
No, you have to pause the video.
Yes, unfortunately, you have to pause. No, we can provide a transcript of those. I'd just like to pick up on tip 16 there, Scott, which was, have you ever attached a Apple Watch running tracker onto a Jack Russell Terrier?
I was going to ask Ravi the same question. How do you get your data from your track logger to a feature service?
I think they extracted the GPS file and put it in the viewers. They also use Collector. So that app was done by one of my colleagues in the office, Beth Lawson. So I don't know the exact details of how she's done it, but yeah, she'll be the person to get in touch with.
We accidentally found out that if you have your iPad and you have your Apple Watch in two different locations signed in as the same person at the same time, they can both be using Tracker at the same time. And we thought we'd broken it. We didn't realize that two things were logged in at the same time, and things got chaotic until I suddenly realized that there was a different session ID coming in from the different points. And so you've got one very fast small object running that way and a very solid object sitting in the car back over here, and they were both giving track points at the same time. Yeah, so it is possible, and it doesn't quite break Tracker, but you have to do some fancy stuff with your track points to have two devices running the same Tracker license at the same time. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're trying to cause chaos, but you can track a dog using an Apple Watch.
That sounds a bit like a submarine waiting for an impending torpedo to come firing at you.
Yeah, so as long as it could be that one day, you know, we just find we've tried Android, we've strapped Android phones to dogs as well, very, very small ones, and just ran Tracker on them as well, and had SIM cards in them. We had live tracking running the dogs just going around the forest. So we're trying all sorts of different things. So far, Apple Watch is winning.
Nice, good to hear. Can you also tell us what a porcupine track log is?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Tracker still does this now, but when we've been using Tracker for a few years now, and especially like the very, very early beta types we got our hands on, it would always cause a porcupine. So if you're going along like this, and say you're out on an island somewhere, and you can actually see, you know, the mainland from where you are, and someone on the mainland has got a Wi-Fi router, or there's a mobile phone tower, what Tracker will do, what your phone will do, it will ping off to it, because it doesn't get its reception from GPS satellites. It also gets its receptions, as we know, like using Google location services, from every cell tower it goes past, and every single Wi-Fi router it goes past goes ping, 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 ping. And the first time we did this, of course, we said, yeah, let's all run out there with Tracker. This is going to be great. And all of our track points, or half of our track points, were pancaked on top of the nearest cell tower. And so what it creates, if you just do a point to line, because you used to have to do point to line, don't do it anymore, in order of your location timestamp, it would go ping, 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 like this, and you'd have this unrecognizable porcupine. But there's 6 lines of code that you can put into your point to line that stops that from happening.
Okay, awesome. But it sounds
tune
like
in, tune in to hear what those 6 lines of codes are.
Hopefully it's one of your tips. Taipuni, are we able to hear you now? Oh, unfortunately not. We still can't get you. It's okay. We can always pass on questions to you to respond to. But again, thank you for joining. I really appreciate that. We do have a couple more questions in for the team at Walking Access. Are there any plans for adding walking time to the network?
At the moment, it's not on the cards, but that is something that we could take into account and add to the list of suggestions that we've received. We're doing a review of the app sometime next year, just looking at the progress and the general feedback that we've been getting to see what kind of improvements we can do.
Awesome. And we have one other question. You've got lots of questions coming for you. Do you show information such as date of track closures from other authorities such as DOC, local councils, and Pocket Maps?
No, so currently it only contains the public access areas across Aotearoa, and those information are from LINZ, from the LINZ dataset. And so a lot of the times it doesn't really include the dates of the closures and stuff. However, we would always recommend to check with the relevant authorities in terms of the closures and the safety as well.
Yeah, good to know. I suppose that can be quite an onerous task of trying to bring together all these disparate sources and keeping it up to date. So, no, totally understand.
Hey, Julian, the other sort of program we have is Find My Adventure. That is based on our website, which you can go and visit. That has local tracks and trails that we get from councils and DOC and things like that. That will have that sort of like, if it's a loop track, how long it might take you or how far it is. But if it is closed for lambing and things like that across farmland, we do try to upload those on there if we can and have that information.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Ed, anything from you before I pass over to closing?
No, just once again, awesome presentations. It's always really cool to see how different people across the country are applying the technology for their own localized ways. So keep up the good work, guys, and we hope to have you again next year.
Get an update from you in 12 months' time.
As long as you don't wear those clothes again.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Scott. We're trying to replicate what you wear in the field, but we may have missed the memo there.
Not quite. It's not quite.
All right. Thank you very much, team. I'll now pass over to Scott Campbell, not to be confused with Scott Sample, although they both own dogs, just to do a bit of a wrap up for NZEUC 2021. Over to you, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Julian. Thank you, Ed, and thanks to all our presenters today. I really enjoyed those field operations presentations, especially those that were actually truly out in the field, or people who were dressing up like they were heading to the field. As Julian said, that brings us to the end of the NZEUC 2021. We've had a real roller coaster with this event, from originally hoping to have a series of face-to-face events across the country to then going virtual, having our plenary followed by 4 awesome focused webinars. We wanted to recognize the huge amount of effort that everyone's put into making the event successful. Our 50+ presenters from all walks of life and all different parts of the country. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell your stories and to share your experiences, as well as all of you, the attendees. We've had, I think overall, just over 1,200 attendees for the series of events, which is pretty phenomenal. It's about double what we would have had face-to-face, for example, at Sky City in the past. So that's great that so many people could join us to hear these stories. And also those people are coming from a range of different organizations across the country. So a big thank you to all of our presenters and to our attendees. So what's next? As Julian said, this is the end of the NZEUC event series, but it's not the end of learning. So we've put together some resources that might help you follow up from some of the things you've heard over the last few events, whether that's recordings of all the sessions, and all of those are available now in a playlist on YouTube, whether it's links to resources, customer stories, technical information, or it's links to the competition we mentioned in the last webinar. We're having a competition to showcase how people are using LiDAR with ArcGIS to solve all kinds of problems. And so we've put all that information together on a single page for you to find. It's here if you want to scan the dinosaur QR code or click on the link, and we'll also share it with attendees. It's on the Eagle blog page. Have a look in there. There's links to all those resources, and we do hope that's useful for you in complementing the stuff you've heard today and over the previous days. And finally, we want to make the events as good as they can be. We put a lot of effort into bringing these events together, but we can always do fine tuning, and we want to make sure that we're hitting the mark in terms of the content, the duration, the catering. Not relevant in this case, unfortunately, but we do value your feedback. So for all of you, if you can share your feedback, we would love you to take a few minutes to share your feedback, either by scanning the large QR code here if you fancy that, or on the previous link I gave on that page, there's a link to the feedback survey there. Just a chance for you to give us some feedback on how the events were for you guys. If we're hitting the mark, we really want to make sure they're as valuable as they can be for all of you. So if you can take a few moments to give us a feedback, it really would be much appreciated. And that's it. That's the end of the conference. Again, thank you to all of you who participated. We are very much looking forward to seeing you face to face. We tried this time to have face-to-face events like we did last year. Didn't quite work out. Fingers crossed though that we'll have a chance to see you all face to face at some point in the not too distant future. Yeah, good luck with Auckland. We're looking forward to seeing you guys, especially. I haven't seen you for a while. Yeah, thanks again to everyone, and looking forward to seeing you face to face in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and take care. And as Scott said, yes, hopefully we get to see you in the near future. But in the meantime, in the wise words of Scott Sample, keep safe and keep spatial. Ka kite anō.